Welcome to part 2 of Competency 19. In this video, we will discuss basic word problems relating to engineering. Provided is a portion of the formula sheet that is used for the TExES 7 to 12 math and is discussed in this video. Use the following to answer questions 1 to 3. The Johnstown Plain is one of the longest, steepest hoists in the world. The railway cars travel a distance of 896.5 feet at an angle of approximately 35.4 degrees to a height of 1,693 feet above sea level. Okay? Now, I have an image of it here. The thing that you need to recognize is that on this right-hand side, they label the feet above sea level. That is not our distance here, our leg of our Pythagorean triangle, okay? Now, on your actual certification test, in a lot of cases, you don't get an image and it won't be this detailed. It'll be just roughed out, okay? But basically, when you're talking about things like this, you would have a right triangle. Okay, that being said, okay, we are in need of this distance. We know what the top is above sea level, but down here, we don't know what that sea level is, okay? We just know what that distance is, okay? So that means we don't know what this height is, okay? All right. Now, let's see what number 1 says. It says, find the vertical rise of the inclined plane. Okay, that means inclined, that means up. That would be the 35.4, where I have the X. That's what we're looking for. We don't know that distance. And also, another distance that we don't know is the horizontal, but we don't have an angle for that. And from the way the question looks, what I'm reading and what I'm suspecting, we don't need it. Okay? All right. So, how do we find that? Well, we're going to use the laws of sine. So, instead of writing that all out and going through all the motions, let's just use our solver. So, math, arrow up, enter. Okay, clear this out. Alpha y equals, enter that. Now, you need to put in sine, the sine we have. Well, we have 2 of them. Remember, you need 2 angles. Okay, we have an angle. It's right here. It's this 90 degrees. Let me color this in. This is 90 degrees, and we have a distance across from it, which allows us to use that particular setup. Okay, so we can say sine of 90 degrees, and that is over the distance across from it, straight across, which would be our hypotenuse. 896, yes, 0.5. Okay, so we're good there. So arrow down, clear out what would be the other side of our equation. Okay, clear it all the way out. Now, alpha y equals, enter, okay, sine again, and this time we're going to use the other degree measure, which is 35.4. And now, oh, I like to close my parentheses. Sorry, just a weird thing about me. Okay, now that's my x. That's my I don't know distance, okay? Now, let's push OK a couple of times and see what we get. Graph, graph. Okay. Uh-oh. Second, did I push it too many times? I probably pushed it too many times. Let me see what happened. Sine of 90 degrees, sine. Oh, you know what? Let me see if I have it in degree mode before I go any further. Mode, and I do not. I have it in radians. Oops. Good point, guys. When you start getting little messages, And always, if you don't get the right ABCD options before you say, I didn't do it right in your brain, check your mode. Thank goodness the calculator said, you are in the wrong mode, person. Okay, now second mode. There we go. All right, second mode to get out of there. Okay, now math, arrow up. Now everything I had is still in there. Double check what I entered. Okay, let's push okay and okay again. Ah, there you go. It makes a difference if you didn't put in radians and it's not in it's in radian mode. So now we have degrees and it's in degree mode. Wonderful. Okay, and that gives us a good measure. Okay, that's option C. Okay, now let's look at number 2. Okay, let me go up just a bit. It says find the elevation of the lower end of the inclined plane. Well, that would be how far above sea level it is. Remember, we have the 1,693.5 feet. Well, we didn't have this bottom height above sea level. Well, we just would subtract the sea level given in the problem minus the sea level or the distance rather, minus the distance we just had, our x, and it'll give us that bottom. Okay, so second mode to get out of this. And we need 1,693.5 minus 519.34. And that gives us, of course, this is an estimate of, uh-oh, see what I did? I didn't put a 1 in front of that. Well, going up and capturing isn't going to help us. 1,693.5. And when I was entering that, you probably said, uh-oh, you got the wrong thing. That's okay. You can always retype. And I knew I was totally wrong because I looked at what I had, didn't look at what I entered, and came over here to my options and realized what I had done. So now let's push enter. Much better. And also, when I looked at A, it was 1,000 off, which made sense to me. Okay. All right. Let's go to number 3. The cars move up the mountain at a rate of 300 feet per minute. Find the rate at which they rise vertically. Okay. This is going to be another case of applying sine, the laws of sine. But instead of using distance, we're going to use rate. And the rate is going up the mountain at this rate, okay, at the 300. So here's what I need you to do. Math, arrow up, number C, go over here and go down and simply put in, instead of distance, just put in 300. Okay, so 300, delete out the other values, the other digits or whatever, the decimal. Okay, now we have our 300. That is the setup that you need. Okay, so graph, and that gives us a very good number. We have to round it a little, but we know it's option B. Okay. All right, let's go to number 4. Number 4. To approximate the length of a marsh, a surveyor walks 380 meters from point A to point B. Okay, so he's going from A to B. Okay, that makes sense, right? Then the surveyor turns 80 degrees and walks 240 meters to point C. Use a diagram to approximate the length of A to C. Okay, that is not the Pythagorean theorem because we don't have B as a 90-degree angle. And here's another question. What is the degree of the angle? Look at your image. That's the 80 degrees is what he turned. So this means that here where B is, that angle must be 100 degrees, okay? Because 180 minus 80 is 100. Now, the formula that you use is the law of cosine, which you will find on your formula sheet that is provided for you. It'll be in the resources in the computer. Okay. If you are not familiar with that, please go to the practice exams that you can take. I recommend going to the Pearson website, and they have a practice exam that you can look at. It does cost $10, but I am here to tell you it is worth the $10. I would not recommend anything that isn't helpful. Hint, hint, hint. Go do that, okay? However, I can't guarantee that this will be on your test, but it's good to know it. You need to know these things, okay? Just in case something like it crops up. So, what do we do right now? You're going to use your numeric solver. So, math, okay, arrow up, press enter. Okay, I already have one similar to it in the calculator, okay? Now, I'm going to go and clear, let's see, it won't let me go down and clear that out. No, it won't. Okay. But what I need to explain to you is when you go across from B, we're going to call that distance B. Okay. And then the other two distances are respectfully A and respectfully C. Okay. All right. So that means we're looking for B, and because of the calculator not being able to put in different variables, we must use X. And X is our only variable. We have all the other information. Okay, so we have X squared. All right, now let's go down. I'm going to clear everything out and go over it again. Okay, you need to take the distances for A and C and square them, and they will be added together. Look at your formula sheet if you're not familiar with this, okay? So what do we have? We have 240 squared plus the 380. Yes, it's 380 squared. Now you subtract. You subtract 2 times each of those. 2 times 240, not each of them, both of them, I'm sorry. 2 times 240 times 380. Now it will be multiplied times the cosine of the one given angle. And this works because this is a side angle side formula, if you remember your geometry, okay? All right, so we use cosine. That's why we call it the law of cosine. Okay, and we need our 100 there. Oops, I didn't type it in right. 100. Close the parentheses, graph, and graph again. And there it is, option B, with a tad bit of rounding. Perfect. Okay, a simple support beam is 64 feet long and has a load at the center, okay, which is the person standing there. The deflection bending of the beam at the center is 1 inch. The shape of the deflected beam is parabolic, meaning a parabola. Okay, so this is what we need to realize. Where this person is standing, that is your origin. Then that means here where it says 1 inch, that is y equals 1. Okay? And then because this is your origin here, that means when you go this distance out here to where the board is, that is going to be a distance of half of 64. So that is right there. That's going to be at 1, and half of 64 is 32. So that means this distance from the origin here is 32. total of 32. So that's x equals 32. Oh, I did that wrong. I did that backwards. I'm so sorry. That is 32 and 1. Okay. Probably thought I lost my mind just a little bit, not completely. 32 and 1. Okay. Now that you see that, it's a little confusing in the way they've worded this. Okay. I did notice one thing on your actual test when you go to take the certification test. And for the most part, in a university practice test, they'll have some sort of a diagram with this type of a question. Okay. They're not going to put this kind of vocabulary in there. This is more of a question that you would have in a regular course where the instructor explains it all to you and you're there defining what deflection is. Okay. All right. So for number 5, find the equation of the parabola. Assume that the origin is at the center of the beam. Okay. So I've already diagrammed that out. So what do we really have here? Well, this is what we really have. We have y equals ax squared. And we haven't shifted anywhere. Okay. We have an origin. We're still on the origin. We haven't shifted. So we can use that base. Okay. Let's say base equation. Okay. So then we go over here, out here to where we have 32 and 1. Okay. So we know y equals 1. And it's because we have a value other than 0 is why I want to use that one. Okay. And then that means that that is times 32 squared. Well, now we know that A equals 1 over 32 squared. Let's put that in the calculator and see what we get. We can already get rid of one option. Get rid of B. Okay? All right. So alpha y equals, and then we have 1 over 32 squared. And there you go. That gives us option A. Okay? All right. When you get another question like this, now you'll know how to think about it. Okay, so number 6 says, how far from the center of the beam is the deflection equal to 1/2 inch? Okay. So this is what we need to do. Go over to y equals, okay, clear everything out that you have in there and actually put in the equation that we think it is from the prior one. So alpha y equals, and enter to set up a fraction, 1 over, you can say 32 squared or just what we have here, 1024, arrow over and say x squared. Okay, now we need to go and change the window. Let me show you what I mean. Alpha window. Okay, everything's okay with 0 and 1. But see where it says auto is flashing? We need to ask, okay, press enter. We're going to ask about our independent, and independent is our x value. So we're going to put in each of our options and see which one is valid. Okay. All right. So go to second graph. Okay. So put in 32. Oh, that's not going to work. Okay. So what about 22.6? Oh, no, I'm wrong here. 63. Okay. Enter. That looks good. And I'll tell you why. Because I bet there was some rounding involved. Okay. Just to get that value. Okay. I like it. But let's try the other two. 28.3, enter. Nah, not going to work. 16, enter. Absolutely not. So we have verified option B. Okay, great. Let's go to number 7. Number 7. A group of civil engineers were designing a tunnel below a freeway. The tunnel, a parabolic arc, which would be a negative parabola situation, okay, is 36 feet wide and 16 feet tall. The engineers calculated the maximum width of a truck going through the tunnel is 7 feet 9 inches. Fortunately, they assume trucks will travel 1 foot from the center line. If 1 foot is allowed between the truck and the roof, what is the maximum height of a truck passing through the tunnel? Okay, that's a lot of information. So I gave you a nice diagram. Okay, now probably I would say when you're testing, you're going to be given a diagram, but it will not be this detailed. Okay, there's no way that they're going to give you everything. They give you images, but there's some things left out, and there's a lot sometimes left to your knowledge. Okay, you're going to have to know what you're doing, and you would have to finish out the diagram or the illustration. They're not going to give you everything like I did, okay? I'm just saying, you need to know what you're doing. Okay, so that being said, we've got our information here. If you notice, the height gave me this point, okay? And the 16 feet I got here. Okay, just like number 6, you had to divide it by 2. Okay, now we know what the height of this truck is. Okay. Yeah, it says here, what is the maximum height of a truck passing through the tunnel? Okay. The truck going through a tunnel is. We calculate the maximum width of a truck. So we know the width. Okay. So this width here is 7 feet 9 inches, but we don't know the height. That's what's going on. Okay. Well, that's all well and good. We're going to have to do some penciling in before we use our calculator. Okay. Let me show you what we're really doing here. We're going to use our base situation, our y equals a, and then our x may be shifted, that's minus the h, and we square that. And then we have a shift up or down, which is our k, right? So in this situation, what do we actually have? Well, we have a shift up of 16. We do not have a shift from right to left because notice that we're symmetric, right on with the origin, okay? So I know this. I know that we have y equals 0, a, x is 18. I have it circled, okay? And that 18 is shifted 0. As I just said, it's not shifted, it's gone up. And that's what gives us the value of 18 on each side, which is the 36. But it is not shifted. However, and it'll square that, by the way. However, we are shifted upward, which is a positive 16. Okay, that's actually what happened. So now, if we put this in the solver, okay, you get something, but it would be a decimal. And that decimal would have a pretty serious error to it. And you would have a problem getting the correct value, I suspect, because look at your ABCD options. They gave you those decimals and those close enough, the answers are close enough that it would cause you a problem. Okay. So let's do a little bit of handwork here, which is not a big deal because we have 0. So 0 equals a to the 18 squared plus 16. Okay. So what do I need to do here? Well, I'm saying that we need to do this. Okay. I know it's going to seem I'm going to do a little algebra skipping around here on you. All right. So I see 18 squared with a, that's a coefficient of a, and then it will be a negative 16. Because if I move the a a times 18 squared to the other side, it would be negative, so I had to adjust for that. Okay, so I've adjusted for all that. Now, what does a equal? A equals, notice I have a negative 16 over 18 squared. Okay, and I'm going to leave it in that form. Okay, now I can take that a and build an equation and actually get something. Okay, so what does this give me? This yields y equals negative 16 over 18 squared, x squared shifted up by the 16. Okay, now I need to know, let's see here. What do I need to do to get that height? Okay. All right. So what I need to do is this. I know that the width of the truck is 7 feet 9 inches. Okay. And how far over is that going to be? Okay. And also plus 1 foot. Okay, so let me change colors here. Sidebar situation. Okay, let's do a little sidebar situation here. I have 7. Okay, and that is going to be 9 out of 12. Okay, that's my inches, 9 out of 12. Okay, does that make sense? I hope it does. Plus 1 inch. So I have 8 and 9 over 12. Let's put that in the calculator and see what we get, okay? All right. And I don't show this often in a lot of videos, but let's go alpha y equals number 2. Oh, that didn't give me what I wanted. Did I do number 1 again? Okay, let's clear. Alpha y equals, okay, number 2. Obviously, I pushed the wrong thing. Okay, so then we need 8 and then arrow over and 9 inches out of 12, okay, which is out of your foot. Press enter, and we need to make that a decimal. So go math number 2, enter, enter again. There we go. That is exactly what we need, okay? So we have some choices here. Okay, we can put that in the equation as it is, or we can put it into the calculator and look for that and see what we get. Let me show you what I mean here. Let's go y equals and clear all that out, okay? And we have negative, okay, alpha y equals, let's set up our fraction of 16 over 18 squared. Yes, that's correct. Okay, then go over and say x squared plus the 16, okay? Now, let's set our window up and let's keep it at ask and just ask it for the 8.75. Okay, the 8 3/4. Okay, works for me. All right, so alpha graph. All right, let's delete out all these other things. Okay, and say 8.75, or you could try to type in the fraction, but I'm not going to do it. There we go. We have 8.75 enter, and that's roughly our value. Okay, however, that is the value. Okay, let's make sure that we're answering the question. Okay, the question asked, it says, what is height, the maximum height of a truck passing through the tunnel? So there is no way that that is the value that we need. The 12 point. So we need, this is approximately 12. I'm writing this down for a reason. 12.19. We have to subtract that foot. Well, if we subtract the foot, look, C is a valid answer. They put 12.22 in there to see if you actually read the question fully or if you went back to verify. Okay. And that was, it could be, it's a lot. That's a lot in that particular question. That's a lot of steps. And you really have to understand the properties of a parabola and the shifts and understand the questioning. Okay. Not always easy for everybody. And if you're tired and stressed during a test, you may forget some of these things. So make sure that you use your calculator as much as you can and go back and quickly look at the question again. Here, I'll go back up. It says, what is the maximum height of the truck passing through? So you really have to look at the diagram and think about it, you know. Okay, so that's the last question in this particular video. And again, thank you so much for watching and also putting up with my rambling. I just want to make sure that you see everything. It's very important to me that you do as well as you possibly can. Because if you're using my videos, I feel like I'm also taking the test myself. And I want you to pass. I want the best for all of you. And kudos to those of you who have passed. And you said some of my tips and tricks with a calculator have helped. I really appreciate those kind of messages. And thank you to all of you who subscribed and liked and share us. You guys are fabulous. Happy testing, guys.